Limitless Minds family, what is up? Happy Wednesday! Wednesday today. And we're going to be talking today about thriving versus surviving. And I think this is one of those things that it's a topic that we want to just kind of bring up, especially on a Wednesday. What do most people think about Wednesdays? Hump day, it's getting over the hump, right? Well, that's kind of a survival mode kind of mentality. So we want to just bring in, let's go thriving. One of the people that I know that I get to work with and who has come into our lives over the last couple of years is an amazing room tilter who every time she shows up, it feels like she's thriving because there's so much enthusiasm, so much joy. So come on in, Krista Ryan. Let's get going. Let's get going.
Thank you for that intro. I'm like, woo, domination. That's like a mic drop right off the get-go. So thank you for that.
Mic drops. We're just dropping mics. We're dropping mics. We're getting thriving. So Mari, I said earlier, Mari's got a definition of thriving. So I want to see kind of like, okay, to grow or develop well or vigorously.
Vigorously.
To prosper, to flourish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you read that, what kind of like images come to your mind in terms of like what thriving means? Me playing with my chair and me going short was not thriving. That was failing. but what kind of things jump out at you about that definition?
I love the word vigorously. Like that is a power word, and that jumped off the page, right? That just boom, that is thriving, like vigorously. Like to me, that is exactly what thriving is. Like living vigorously, not just in always neutral, right? So neutral, and I love this idea too. Get over that hump, I see. I think thriving is vigorously living, and I just love that. I love that.
I love the word prosper as well, and then flourish. Like flourish is an amazing word. It's got like the word flow even in it, right?
Yeah.
So I just think about like, so there's a couple images that come to mind when I think about prosper and flourish. Like the first image that comes to mind is like just verdant fields, like full of life, full of like depth, just like flowers everywhere, like this just like explosion of life. Like that's what I get when I get flourish. Yeah. The other thing I think about is like there's also vigorously, even with that word, there's like this peacefulness around it. I don't know how to explain that. Like there's not like this frantic nature behind it.
Yeah.
Not like this, like, it's more like, yes, it's more enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's not chaos. It's not chaos. Enthusiasm. And I love your visual, because when I look at the word flourish, I immediately go to like green, like plants, growth, right? Something in my mind attaches to like growth, like a flower blooming or growing, or plants are green, fresh. That is what locks in with my mindset when I think of the word flourish. And that is exactly what thriving is, right? Growth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's vigorous growth. Yes. Yeah. And so it's interesting. So this whole topic for me kind of came, I was just on vacation. I was in Europe. I was in Spain and Italy. And when I was in Italy, I was on Ligurian coast. It's about 2 hours south of Milan, 20 miles east, 20 kilometers east of Genoa. So if you just go straight down to right there, and then you just go to the right a little bit. And I was in this little town, and it was really interesting because the town may have had 10 to 11 streets in it, maybe, right? Like, and it was just on the coast. And I think when you think about a coastal town, right? When I think about, like, I live in Florida, and I think about coastal town, I think relaxation, ease, like put my feet in the falls, and like this town was the exact opposite. Like it was alive. Like there was not in a chaotic way, but it just had this, like, you could tell these people were flourishing, that they were joyous in everything that they did. They weren't content with just lying on no, we're not just going to lie on the We're going to go swimming. We're going to do laps out there in the Mediterranean. We're going to get the kayaks out. We're going to get stand-up paddleboards. We're going to go cliff jumping. We're going to go scuba diving. Like, we're alive. And it just kind of hit me like, this is thriving, right? For me, they were not just getting through life. They were experiencing life. They were loving life. They were, like, there's a great quote from the movie Dune. Which the second one's coming out, but the first one, and the quote was, life is not a problem to be solved, but an existence to be experienced.
That's beautiful.
Right? And
that
so
beautiful.
That's kind of what comes up for me when I think thrive. I think experience. I think sinking your teeth in. I think going and living a life that is full.
Yeah. Not a sleepy town, not a sleepy life.
No.
Oh, I think that's just beautiful. That's like, I love that you painted a beautiful picture for one. I think that is a great kind of like indicator, right? So when you're walking us through that city and you're saying like they're thriving, I heard that piece that you mentioned about joy.
Yeah.
Right? They're living their life. They're making choices that are maybe aligned with their values and living a life of joy. That is, to me, what thriving is.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there too. It's like connecting with your values. And when you connect with your values, then you can start really, truly thriving. And it was really interesting too. I mean, and DJ's giving me just talk here about the humble European brag and the seeing me go dog.
Calling you out right off the start.
Appreciate you, DJ. But it's like, but it's interesting. Like, to travel, I think almost paramount in a sense of like, you get so many different perspectives on lives.
Yeah.
And for me, it really, honestly, it hit me. I'll tell you where it hit me. Where it's been really a wake up call. It's been in coffee shops.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the experience of an American coffee shop? It's become this place where you don't even have to speak to another human being.
Yeah.
You order on your phone, you come in, you grab the thing, and then like you can run to your car and you're out. Or if you come to the coffee shop, like, and you're going to spend time there, everybody's got their headphones on and they're in their laptops and they're working. Like, that's been my experience of American cafes. Is that the way it is up in Minnesota too? Is that
absolutely? And not just cafes, but restaurants and anywhere you go out that used to be a social atmosphere, individuals are getting comfortable surviving and not thriving, meaning not making those human connections, not smiling at each other because life is too simple, right? We're just like, like, that's not, to me, thriving. That's not me being my best version of myself. Connection, joy, living with intention and purpose, that's my version of thriving.
Yeah.
And it involves the human experience. Absolutely.
Yeah, intention and purpose. There it is, right? And so, and that's what I love about. So this was the other. So that was the American coffee shop, and this is kind of what hit me when I came back. Yeah. But the Italian, right? La Perla, Recco, Italy. Just highly recommend going in there and spending €1 and getting an incredible cup of espresso. That's the best espresso you've ever had in your life. And you walk in and you go to the counter. Everybody stands at the counter. They're just hanging out at the counter. They just get their elbow on the counter and they're drinking their coffee and they're talking to whoever's next to them. And they're and there's tables, but nobody's on their phone. They're all just like families and 4s and 5s and 3s and people. Lots of Italian going on. And the whole experience is like, you go up, you order in my horrible broken Italian, and they by the time I left at the end of the week, all the people in there were just laughing at me. They were just like, "What do you want now?"
Here's that American. Here he comes.
Yeah, my wife wanted a decaf, and I didn't know how to say decaf, so I was like, "No caffeine, no caffeine." So I would walk in, and they would just do this to me. They were making fun of me. Perfect. But it was like such a different experience where it was just part of the entire experience of getting a coffee wasn't just to get the sustenance, right? Like in America, it's just give me my caffeine.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And it was like a different, a different experience. And so that kind of hit me like, oh, they slowed down a little bit. Right. And I think thriving has that ability to slow down, to get, we always talk about limitless minds being where your feet are, to be here, right? To get the present moment awareness.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the whole culture makes you do that. And I thought that was really, that jumped out at me, like the coffee. And by the way, I'm completely ruined for coffee now. DJ just asked me what's the euro? It's like $1.10. It's $1.10. Like, so if you go over there with a buck, you automatically have 90 cents instead of $1, right? So it's not bad. But go ahead.
I community, DJ mentioned too, is so important. That is thriving in numbers, right? So I love the sense of community. And here's a question for you. How do you know if you're just surviving or if you're actually thriving? What does it look like? How do you know? For me, it's asking the question, what else? Like, what else could I be doing? Oftentimes, when I'm communicating or working with clients or employees or organizations, it's very clear when they're thriving or surviving. And it's when they expose like, oh, that's not part of my job. That's not something I have to do. Thriving is, ooh, I get to do this. What else can I do? What more could be possible? That is thriving.
Yeah. And I think what you kind of hit there too is like, you can get to that when you feel like your purpose is bigger than yourself.
Yes.
Right. Like I was able to be a part of an organization where everybody in the organization was driving towards something that was so massively bigger than themselves. It was easy to let go of the ego, and they weren't just trying to keep their jobs. In the world of baseball, so one of the things that's crazy about baseball is everybody's on a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare that you get a 2 or 3 year contract. I was very lucky with Chicago. I had a couple 2-year contracts, so made things a little bit differently. But the fact of the matter is, when you are on a 1-year contract, you're kind of constantly thinking about October and going, oh crap, am I going to have a job next year? What am I going to do? So it's like you're kind of almost, a lot of people in that baseball world end up working to survive, to just keep their job for the next year.
Yeah.
And that creates some negative culture. When we were with Chicago, we were really lucky is that we had this thing, this 108-year elephant in the room that everybody in the organization was striving for. And we recognized we were not just striving for that in order to win. We were trying to do something that was massive, that was going to have a bigger social impact than just baseball. It was bigger than the sport. It was changing people's mindset about what was possible in the universe and in the world. And when we won, we stated this before, it was the 7th largest gathering in human history. We had 5 million people show up at their parade. So think about that. There's 5 million people now, at least, that know anything is possible, right? This one thing, this 108 years, we couldn't get it done. It was impossible, lovable losers. It was never going to happen. Now, 5 million people know that that's a myth, that way of thinking is mythology. Yeah. And so and then, they all have friends and they all have friends. So who knows how many people we really influenced and impacted there. Yeah. But it's not small. And we knew that going in. So it was really easy to be part of an organization that was all driving towards the same goal, that was egoless, that all cared about the same thing. And what did we do? We freaking thrived. We were thriving. Everybody was flying. We went with velocity. We went with energy. Yeah. Everybody showed up with enthusiasm. People got to the field early all the time because we just wanted to be around each other. Yeah. That's a good, sure sign that you're thriving.
And what you just touched on right there, the possibility that there's more, and to challenge the status, right? That is thriving. Challenge the status, challenge the norm, challenge the narrative. That challenge, adversity, change, that's thrive. Like, that's thriving in action.
Yeah. And I think you kind of nailed it there too. Like, thriving isn't the lack of challenge.
No.
Right?
It's dominating through it. It's embracing it and saying, like, I'm going to thrive, meaning I'm going to embrace the heck out of this challenge. I'm not going to pretend it's not there. I'm going to embrace it and work with it. That's thriving. I just think that is so big.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think you kind of nailed it there too. Like just, it's really interesting. Like you I think about different situations that have been really challenging and really difficult. So my past history before I got into sports is I was in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And there will be multiple, and I don't know, have you had the chance to watch the show The Bear yet? If for any
I
of
have
our
not.
listeners, if you have not watched The Bear,
The
watch
Bear.
The Bear on Hulu, FX.
Okay.
Half hour episodes, 2 seasons times 10.
Okay.
And it's just like, just raw and real. Sometimes not really easy to watch, sometimes hilarious, sometimes tragic, sometimes beautiful, right? So it's, yes, Mari, it is.
Mari
it's
is
amazing.
It's
amazing. And I finished both seasons. And it's remarkable because it's a very good clean look at, clean's the wrong word. It's a real look behind the curtain of restaurants.
Okay.
Right? It's probably the most accurate depiction I've seen of restaurants that I've been around, that I've been seeing. And one of the things that would happen is it's hard. It's a challenge. It's kind of like game day every day, in the sense that you got to think on your feet. You got to be quick. You got to react fast. You have to prioritize. You have to compartmentalize. You have to use your teammates. You have to do all this stuff. And there were so many nights where you're just like under it. We called it being in the weeds. It's a restaurant term. And in the weeds is you have too much stuff to do and you don't have enough resources to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so what ends up happening there is that if you're in the weeds, because you have too much stuff to do and not enough resources to do, the one resource that you end up sacrificing is time.
Yeah.
And so that resource of time, you end up like having to get to stuff a little bit later that, hey, the person had to wait for their tea, or we wanted to drop this check, but they had to wait an extra 2 or 3 minutes. So it's just that's the entity that gets sacrificed. But there's a high stress level there. And I just remember so many times when we were under it and we would just be smiling. Like it was awesome. It was so much fun to be in that challenge and be in that zone and just flying all over the place. You know,
I'm a big believer. I think everyone should experience the restaurant industry in their life. I really do. I think it helps people understand empathy and growth and owning things that are not even yours to own. Right. So I remember I had to get really good at taking the blame for burnt steak. You know, like this steak's not done well. Okay, you know, I'm going to pretend that I burnt your steak. You know, I'm going to own it because I'm the server, and that's okay. So it forces you to thrive through conditions that are out of your control, and you learn quickly not to blame, complain, because that gets you stuck and is the opposite of thriving, right? Then you're just surviving through the day.
That's an indicator. That's an indicator. Boom, right there, red flag. Complaining, blaming, pointing fingers, boom, red flag, you're surviving versus thriving.
100%. That's survival mode. Think of like, we all can do this, right? Survival mode in marriage, right? Are you doing the minimum to survive your marriage, or are you dominating and thriving and challenging each other and, you know, traveling and having creative conversations? And I mean, there's a lot of indicators for survival versus thrival. And I love, let's touch on.
I like the word that you just created. I like the fact that you just created a word called thrival. I like that word. We get t-shirts, thrival.
Thrival.
I got a great t-shirt in the mail this week, just saying that.
Good. I'm glad you did. Dr. West in the house. Let's touch on this. I feel like I'm thriving when I get that feeling of gratitude that fills up my chest and it almost moves me to tears, thinking about how far I've come and how far I can go. Yes, you're not done, right? Flourish. That goes back to the word flourish and growth. And there is so much more. That's thrival. I love that.
Yeah, thrival. The thrival. That's gonna be good. That's your second book, Krista. Thrival. The thing that Julia brings up is that movement to tears.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it was Jim Valvano. Right. I don't know if you've ever seen that speech. Jimmy V, he was the NC State coach, and the Jimmy V Foundation battles cancer. Right. Yeah. Foundation.
One of the best speeches ever.
Right. And in that, what do you remember? I can't remember the exact moments, but he's like, you know, you've had a good day when you've laughed, you've cried, you've moved to tears, you've had deep thoughts. I can't remember all the different things. I got to go back and watch that. But that movement to tears thing is like, when I get moved to tears, it's normally not because something's sad. I've seen enough tragedy in my life, and I'm not that I'm immune to it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it doesn't beat me up. Like it doesn't. But where I get moved to tears is like amazing acts of kindness.
Me too.
Empowerment and lifting others up. That stuff crushes me. Not crushes me, but it's not. That's the wrong word. It just like touch, moved, and inspired. Right. Bring your own tears. Exactly. Yeah. Bring your own tissues. Right. Absolutely, Julia. And that's the stuff when we can get to that, and we open up authenticity, when we open up vulnerability, when we open up like caring.
Yeah.
I get moved to tears like that. And that's why, like, good TV commercials during the Super Bowl always just make me, I'm done.
Yeah.
But
yes. Josh, do you remember the first time you and I cried together? Julia says.
Yeah, I did. I'm sure. I'm sure, Julia, I'm sure it was like you and I were like putting together some sort of presentation, and we were telling stories about something, and you were probably telling a little bit about your story. That's my bet, is that your history came out and I started losing it. But I don't know. I'm interested, Julia, if you could type in where it was, that'd be great. But yeah, I mean, that stuff, and I'm wondering, like, why. I'm curious about, like, what do you think? Why do you think that stuff moves us to tears? What is it for you, Krista, that like it hits you in that?
Go back to the word community, Josh. It really does. Like, I think I get moved to tears because I realize I'm where I'm supposed to be, and there's so much more growth that I can go, and we're stronger together, right? So I get moved to tears when I'm thriving, when I'm aligned with my values, when I believe there's more to come. That's where I just like, woof, I lose it. And when I have that community with others that are in the same space, right? When I'm like, oh, we're thriving together, like that energizes me. And it's just beauty, it's just beautiful being part of it, a witness to it, and part of it in action.
Yeah, it's, you bring up beauty, and I think there it is, right? And it's like, for me, not to get too spiritual or whatever, but when those things happen, it just feels like maybe there's something bigger than ourselves.
It's
right?
not an accident.
It's not an accident. And so those experiences, those human experiences, those really authentic moments where you see that kindness, you see the beauty for me, right?
Yeah.
Like there were times. So, okay, the last time that I cried in public was we were in Madrid, Spain, and my wife and I went to a flamenco performance. Okay, so flamenco is, castaneta, but there was none of that. It was just like real, and it was so powerful and so impassioned. My wife and I looked at it. Was so funny because they introduced it, and they're like, the name of the thing was like, I can't remember what it was in Spanish, but it was like the world of emotion, right? Or something of that nature. Like, we're going to explore the world of emotion through dance. And the way they translated it is like, welcome to the house of emotion. And Karen and I were like, kind of like, that's kind of goofy. That's kind of cheesy. And within 20 minutes, her and I were just bawling. And there was nothing sad about it. It was just this power, beauty. These people were alive. They were just absolutely thriving. They were in flow, and it just like poof, it threw us back like beyond belief. We were spinning. Yeah, and our kids fell asleep, but Karen and I were jet lagged, but they slept through the whole thing. But Karen and I were just weeping and just going, "Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful."
So that's a gift, right? And that, to me, that's where I'm like, this human experience, this life is a gift, and we get to live it. It's a gift every single day. That's where I'm like, oh, just thriving. And I just think it's like, to your point, when you experience those moments as gifts, that's where the emotion comes out for me. That's where I'm just like, oh, there's just so much beauty in the human experience that we get to live.
Yeah, Julia kind of nailed it, is beauty and delicate strength of those universal human experiences. I believe in people. And I think, allergy season.
I believe in people too.
Anything that reminds me of that moves me to tears. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And when you see people being kind, when you see people taking care of each other, right? And I think it's that as we're having our therapy session today, it's like you're not alone, right? You're not alone, and there's others out there. And I think one of the most beautiful things that people can do for each other is take care of each other.
Absolutely.
Lift each other up, empower each other. And so I guess that's our call to action today for anybody watching this live, whether you're watching it live and typing in the chat, or you're having to see the replay of it. Like, that's your challenge, is to go do some sort of random act of kindness that lifts others up, that lifts somebody else up. It could be a text message. It could be a phone call. It could be opening a door for somebody. It could be paying for somebody's groceries. I don't know, whatever you decided to be, but think about if we all did that, if we just like, what would happen? Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be hard, right? Thriving isn't hard. It's beautiful. Yeah. Now I'm going to think about what I'm going to do.
Well, you already sent me a t-shirt. Does that count? Getting me a t-shirt.
There you go.
No, and that's it. Like, but it's also too, like, I think the other piece of this too is it's got to, like, when there's meaning and purpose behind it, when there's really, like, that's the stuff that, like, when you see acts of kindness that, like, like, the people get each other, they understand, and they reach through those barriers that might have been there to lift up, and it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's something as simple as, I love when people look at me in my eyes and smile. That just, like, fills my heart. I'm like, oh, you see me, like. You're not ignoring, you're not, like, isolating, you're not stuck to this. You actually see me. We're in this moment together. That's one of the greatest gifts, right? The human experience.
Okay, so takeaways. Let's go to our takeaways. Thrive, to how you can help yourself thrive. Connect with your values. If you are really clear about those, if you're not clear about those, start thinking about it. Right, connect with your values and live those actions. Number 2, when you're in a coffee shop, start talking and stop looking at your phone. Number 3,
connect.
And I think number 3 is reach out and lift others up. Right, give people what you would want them to give to you. Yeah. Right, give that love out, give that appreciation out, give that lift up, whatever it might be, but do that.
Yeah, and Julia said we're all just walking each other home. So true. So true. So enjoy the stroll. Walk together.
I love it. I got to see a lot of your strolls in the middle of the winter on your Instagram.
They're icy. They're slippery, but I'm doing them.
That's just good to get through. I'm just gonna melt the thing. It's all ice ball. I got it. We're getting through it. We're gonna find a way. You can do this, Krista.
We're gonna make it happen. Keep going. KFG. Just keep going.
You get to come. Listen, you have an open invitation to come down to Florida during the winter. Open.
I'm going to take you.
Down. We'll get together. Come on in.
It will happen.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Krista Ryan. Mari, who do we have up tomorrow? Can you throw that in the chat for me real quick? We have Travis and Colin tomorrow. Buckle up. Look out. Travis and Colin tomorrow.
That will be amazing.
Lives. We're here every day, 12:30. 12:30. Come on. LinkedIn, Pacific time, 9:30. Hawaii time is probably like 1 a.m. I don't even know. But, thank you all for your time today. Julia, thank you for your thoughts. DJ, thanks for talking smack. Krista, as always, thanks for being you. You are an amazing, wonderful soul. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful for you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
Driving.